Hi there, this is Jamison. Hi, my name is Jamison, and today we're going to talk about water. Um, but before we talk about water, I want to talk about myself. I'm a filmmaker. Um, I live in Venice, and I work on like health, consciousness, sustainability projects. Um, and my biggest, you know, quarantine hobby has been health and consciousness. And for me, it's been about meditation and breath work, and especially this morning having like a one of the Stimulus TV hosts do a breath work. It definitely inspired me to go more inward. And and during like this time, it's very difficult to kind of like manage emotions. And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of upsetness, there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of anger. Um, and I think, dealing with these emotions, you have to realize that you have a lot of power over them, a lot of control. Um, and so I think for me, the secret to this to most of the health secrets out there is something a little bit more on the lines of emotions. It's something that's more in our control than we think, and I think um, one of the secrets to that is water. And I want to show a documentary. I kind of cut together. It was like an hour and a half documentary, and I cut it down to 20 minutes. And I think this documentary really shows the power of consciousness, our consciousness, and our intentions. And yeah, here's the documentary. Check it out.
Southeast Asia. The year is 1956. The place is a secret military laboratory for developing and producing weapons of mass destruction. Work has been underway here for several years on a powerful new generation of bacteriological weapon. The scientists are discussing what properties this weapon should have at one of their protracted secret meetings. Suddenly, the session breaks off. All of the participants are taken to the hospital with symptoms of severe food poisoning. An investigation into what happened quickly hits a dead end. The scientists had consumed nothing except water from the carafes on their table. The water was tested. No harmful additives were found. Its chemical composition was H2O, and that's what the report said: poisoning caused by ordinary water. "20 years later, a fantastic hypothesis was put forward. A hypothesis that could explain water's unpredictable behavior. Water has memory. Experiments done in many countries around the world have shown that water receives and makes an imprint of any outside influence, remembering everything that occurs in the space that surrounds it. Any substance coming into contact with water leaves a trace in the water. Had our ancestors guessed this when they used silver vessels to turn ordinary water into healing water?
It is today the best antibiotic that is made, as good in Afghanistan and Iraq. The American army uses this water, 1 atom per 100 million, to kill all the germs in a wound. So the President of the United States uses this water to keep infectious bugs from his hand. So I said, how can this water be?
As it records information, water acquires new properties, yet its chemical composition remains unchanged.
So their theory was the chemical composition of the water is important. Now the sensational news is that that is nonsense. The structure of water is much more important than the chemical composition.
The structure of water means how its molecules are organized. We can see how water molecules join together into groups. These are called clusters. Scientists came up with the idea that these clusters work as memory cells of a certain sort, in which water records the whole history of its relationship with the world, as if on magnetic tape.
People don't think when you turn on the light, the water is changing. When you turn on the electric field from the power lines, the water may change. So that is the direction of research.
The water, of course, remains water, but its structure, like a nervous system, reacts to any irritation. Modern instruments have made it possible to record the fact that within each of water's memory cells, there are 440,000 information panels.
We have carried out many
each of which
experiments
is
on the effect that
for its
quite
own
diverse
type of
factors
interaction
have
with
on
the
samples of
environment.
water. Magnetic fields, electrical fields, various objects, and also including a human presence and human emotions. And it became clear that positive and negative human emotions are the strongest element of influence.
Professor Korotkov's laboratory has conducted numerous experiments on the effect of human emotions on water. A group of people were asked to project onto a flask of water in front of them very positive emotions like love, tenderness, and concern. Then, the flask was replaced with another one, and the people were asked to project emotions of a different type: fear, aggression, hatred. After this, measurements were taken on the samples. The water exhibited changes that were clearly in one direction or another.
So love increases water's energy levels and stabilizes the water, while aggressive emotions reduce the energy and make radical changes in the water.
I hope to show people through my research that water has a memory of its own. Dr. Emoto's laboratory does research on water samples, which are subjected to various forms of outside influence. The impressions made upon the water are recorded by swiftly freezing it in a cryogenic chamber. This is what water heated in a microwave oven looks like. This is the effect of a mobile telephone. Somebody said thank you to this water. Excuse me. You disgust me. With modern technology, it is possible to structurize water artificially. When seeds were grown under laboratory conditions using this kind of water, the soy sprouts had 6 times greater photon radiation than when ordinary water was used. Using structurized water makes vegetables ripen faster and increases the amount of useful microelements and vegetable proteins several-fold.
If we look at the shoots, the treated ones were long, even, and strong, while the untreated ones were short, thin, and weak. If we look at the plants today, those from the selected seeds have all ripened, but the ones from non-selected seeds have not. We have to say that using structurized water really does affect the growth of vegetables and fruits.
For the purposes of irrigation, 20% less of this type of water is needed than when using ordinary water. No fertilizer was added to the soil or the water. The chemical composition remained the same, H2O. The only thing that had changed was its structure. At the present time, scientists can answer the question of how this happens, but science does not yet have an answer to the question of why. Depending on age, a human being is made up of 70 to 90% water. An adult drinks approximately 2.5 liters of water each day in order to sustain his normal life functions. Another 1.5 liters is absorbed through the skin during bathing or showering. Water makes a long and difficult journey before arriving in our homes.
It used to be common knowledge that a settlement could only occur where there was a natural source of water. Today, whether or not there is water in a place is of no importance, because we transport water for thousands of miles using high pressure.
In nature, Rivers and streams always flow along a smoothly curving course. But any water supply system has multiple right-angle turns. The natural structure of the water breaks down more and more with each such turn.
Water from a water supply system which flows into our homes through pipes has various forms, crystals of various forms, but they are all deformed. That is, it may look like this. It can look like this or have these crystals in many other arrangements, but you won't see any symmetry or beauty.
We subjected water to super-weak magnetic field impulses. These fields are tens of thousands of times weaker than the Earth's natural magnetic field. That means they are negligibly small from the standpoint of modern science.
Fish were introduced into water that had been treated in this way, and the fish soon produced an unusual hatch of small fry. They differed radically from other fish to which they were related, though they looked as much alike as twins.
Gray stripes appear on the belly of all these males at once, along with colored spots, which had not been observed previously. These are called phenotype changes, and it is of fundamental importance that these changes appear not just in some of the treated fish, but in all of them at the same time. And these phenotype changes that we caused are not a hypothesis. They occurred in practice.
The experiment resulted in changes not only in the outward appearance of the fish, but also in their behavior. They began to react to outside stimuli in the same way. It was as if the whole school had acquired a collective mind.
A whole important area of problems came up, which had not been studied whatsoever. Therefore, it was decided that it would suffice to establish even just the fact that behavior could change the form of animals using only water, which fact, in and of itself, is very significant. If water has such a strong effect, that is, we shouldn't make it public without thoroughly studying this.
Let's imagine that here we have a human being, and here we have water. This water contains many different types of information. If we introduce this water into the human body, then that human body will assimilate this information, which may change the person's characteristics. Let us see how this type of water affects human blood. The doctor is drawing blood from a patient's finger. Using a special microscope, we shall be able to see the condition of her body from this drop.
These are red blood cells, and they've lost their electrical charge, so they're all stuck together in a formation called a rouleau. Here's a huge symplast. Symplasts are associated with heart disease and arthritis and lung disease and many other conditions that could be coming in the future.
The doctor asks the patient to drink a small amount of structured water. After 12 minutes, the doctor again draws blood from the patient and studies it.
So you can see that the cells then become buoyant, they become slippery, and they have their electrical charge, so they repel each other. That allows them to carry oxygen, and it means that we're changing the pH of the blood back to an aerobic environment rather than an anaerobic environment. I think that's utterly amazing that just drinking water could do that.
Traditional Eastern medicine has been based for many centuries on the vibrations and resonance of the body's water content. The pulse indicates if the resonance tone is right. It is believed that the pulse may be strong, weak, cold, or hot. On the basis of this, an experienced physician carries out a kind of energy scan of the body, makes a diagnosis, and prescribes treatment. We do not heal with water because a person, the human body, is water. The person simply reads the mantras or prayers in order to correct the bad water he has inside. How this hidden effect works is not known. In all of the world's religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, it is the practice to recite a prayer before taking food or to consecrate the food during major religious holidays. How often do we stop and think, what for? And how did the certainty arise in such dissimilar religions that this is the right thing to do? Why did something that science is only now trying to understand seem obvious to our ancestors? It turns out that the frequency of vibrations in the prayers of any religion, uttered in any language, is 8 Hertz, which corresponds to the frequency of the oscillations of the Earth's magnetic field. Therefore, a prayer, pronounced with love, creates a harmonic structure in water, which is an ingredient of absolutely all food.
We now have some idea about how this happens through the structurization of water clusters, water molecules. Therefore, we can take some purely practical advice from this. To sit down at the table in a very good mood, and under no circumstances to dine with cruel or aggressive-minded people, because this will have a direct destructive effect on our health.
In 1995, Dr. Masaru Emoto was the first one to record musical impressions on water. In Dr. Emoto's laboratory, they presented water with different types of music, after which they froze the water and then under the microscope could clearly see the crystals that the water had formed. Here is what the music of Bach looks like. Mozart. Beethoven. Heavy rock.
Sometimes it's just certain eruptions, emotional ones, which cause such absolutely negative results. I can't recall a case in which such a negative spewing out of emotions as this happened at a classical music concert.
Experiments show that aggression causes a sharp change in water's memory. Such water can provoke an aggressive state in hitherto calm people.
Strange as it might seem, evil interacts more easily and simply. Apparently, this has to do with the sensitivities of human beings who always feel negative things more acutely.
Dr. Emoto conducted another groundbreaking experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month he said thank you to one beaker. You're an idiot to the second. And the third one he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black. And the rice that was ignored began to rot. Dr. Emoto feels that this experiment provides an important lesson, especially with regard to how we treat children. We should take care of them, give them attention, and converse with them. Indifference does the greatest harm. It may not always be easy to do, and almost always it takes practice. Laboratory containers of water were inscribed with hieroglyphs denoting words and the names of well-known people. Love, hope, soul, Mother Teresa, Hitler. Dr. Emoto's numerous experiments aimed at finding the word that cleanses water most powerfully have shown that it is not just one word, but a combination of two: love and gratitude.
"20% water."
Oh, great. So for me, this has a pretty big impact on just, understanding the position we're at right now.
All right, everybody,
in terms of like
let's
the
get
news making us
started.
afraid,
Hi.
and I think it essentially gives us a lot more power once we realize that our thoughts and what we listen to, what we take in, adjusts and changes our reality and our health. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions or comments? I guess I'll look over here. I mean, water exposed to tough love might be pretty funny.
So, hey Jamison, it's Corey. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So we've been doing this in some other segments to like kind of have like at the end a little bit of a conversation. I think it helps to make things flow because I don't know, man. You just opened my mind to a whole bunch of shit that like I'm gonna have to spend some time really digesting. But I think it's really interesting. What got you inspired and kind of engaged in this topic in the first place? I'm really curious to like know what the impetus for that was.
So for me, I got really sick. I had pneumonia 4 times when I was like 16, 17, 18, 19. And I had to go to the hospital, a lot. And I had this peritonsil abscess that clogged my throat. And like, I basically couldn't drink water or eat food anymore. It was just a big abscess that I really couldn't, had to go to the ER. And having that kind of those health concerns made me get into like health and eating healthy. But later on, it was the realization that my thoughts were causing most of this. Was a big impetus to change. And I think, everyone feels like they really like they have this like chatterbox, this like mind that just goes. And so understanding like that we have the ability to change our mindset based on exercise and eating healthy and, listening to good music and all sorts of things. We have like this like tuning fork within us to essentially, see what feels good and what doesn't, what's pleasant and what isn't. And I think knowing what makes us feel good and focusing on that is essential for good health.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting because it feels like a lot of people that come with really progressive and innovative health solutions are people that have really been forced to almost dive to the level of depth that you seemingly have because they've gone through something traumatic or impactful or just life changing through that experience. I'm curious, like, so from a research standpoint, it seems like all of this is really compiled from what looks to be like a lot of Eastern medicine, right? And it's very much like this is foreign to people in America. We don't hear Dr. Emoto and these different types of scientists in Russia and their points of view and how it affects things that we take for granted, right? Like water. Like we don't question that for the most part, aside from the fact that I think Dasani's taken some heat for being tap water when it should be a little bit better. I've seen a lot of people testing the acidity of water recently in terms of like different bottled water, and it seems to be that like Fiji's the one that probably indexes the best in terms of like being what it's supposed to be. You can actually taste that. But in terms of like the Eastern medicine and kind of like science that goes into this, why was that essential to being able to kind of bring this point of view to life?
I think that's essential to have this point of view seen. I think people have talked about it forever, like blessing food and water, like they mentioned in the documentary. But I think this type of science is necessary for people to empirically see it. I did this one experiment, and after watching this documentary in 2006, and I got like 3 things of rice and did exactly the same experiment. And actually, it wasn't rice; it was quinoa, and it had the same results. And I knew it was true by like watching it, but for me, I kind of have to do it myself in order to really believe it. I recommend that for everybody. Like there's a sense of like a scientist in everybody. And when you do the experiment yourself, there's a sense of confidence and understanding that you didn't get from just hearing it from somebody else, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the fact that you did it yourself is critical for me personally because it's just like, you know, there's a lot of things on YouTube. There's a lot of things that people say and all of that, and it's hard to discern as to really what's truth and what's not in today's day and age. But you've done some of the tests yourself. What do you drink water wise now? Like, what's critical for you to be able to consume that and feel good about it?
So I recommend either distilled or reverse osmosis first, just to take out all the, you know, there's a lot of like of waste that kind of goes through the system. You know, water's just sucks up everything. It sucks up everything it touches. So if you look at these water filters, they just like have all this gunk. Once they've taken out so many of the minerals, and there's just so much waste from agriculture and also from human drug use and such. So when you use like RO systems or distilled water, it takes out everything, which isn't necessarily good. The form could be very acidic. And so usually what I'll do is I'll add some minerals back to it, which is like the sole salt I mentioned last episode. And that's basically just Himalayan salt, a little teeny bit of Himalayan salt. And the goal is you're essentially trying to recreate spring water. Spring water obviously would be like the best if you had a spring around you.
Wait, so Poland Spring is not spring water? Because you're about to fuck my shit up right now if this is the case.
Is Poland Spring? I don't know what Poland Spring. I mean, it hopefully it is.
I'm gonna guess it's probably not, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You never know with these marketing companies, but like
as a marketer, I'm gonna guess that the answer is no. To be honest,
yeah,
that's just great branding. Yeah, it's a spring in Poland that I'll never get to see, so it's got to be real.
That's the hard one. It's like they can't show it. Like, I don't know if I could believe it yet. You know.
Yeah.
And I think it's like it's important to know, you know, everything has water, right? Like all the food you eat, all the everything. And so it's a very, you know, significant part of our lives. And so yeah, I think it's just knowing this and knowing kind of how your emotions, how your thoughts really dictate your health is really important to take account for.
Yeah, this is awesome. I think we really appreciate a lot of the insight that's going into this. The chat is fact-checking us on Poland Spring and saying that there is not one drop of spring water in Poland Spring.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and
so sad.
marketing strikes again, and it just makes me think about the fact that I guess Joe Camel really is not actually cool. And so it's one of those things where, all this kind of stuff helps us question what we're putting into our bodies. What have you been putting in your body recently in quarantine, man? Like, I know that like this, you're conscious about this, and now we're living a different lifestyle. So how are you like making sure that you're your best self physically and maybe potentially from a mindset perspective, because all that stuff is connected right now.
Yeah. I mean, I drink, my goal is 3 liters of water a day. I've been doing that for about 2 months now. And I think it's a big aspect of, of health. It's just being hydrated and being healthy. And so, I mean, water is such a big aspect, but even doing the breath exercise this morning with somebody else some of the other hosts, you realize there's so much more to health, than one can even imagine. But I'll just have mostly raw fruits and veggies. I have berries, and I have, I mean, my diet's mostly whole foods, but I'll have processed food too. But I think a lot of it is really mindset, maintaining a positive mindset.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So do you try to like stay plant-based as much as you can?
Yeah, I mean, I went vegan
Oh
or
wow.
plant-based a long time ago, 2007, and that was because I was so sick. And I think there's a sense, I mean, I have so many different like beliefs about it, but for me, it's mostly like if you think about the water of the animals, even the amount of like fear and like impact that goes into the animal agriculture as we know it today,
Mm.
and the mass mainstream, it's different than necessarily like like a Native American going out and finding like an old deer and like being like, "Pow," you know.
Right. Right.
The reality is it's not what people think it is, and I think that's why like what is it, 90% or there's a huge percentage of animals that have tumors that we're eating. And so why do they have tumors? Because they hate their lives and they're eating really bad food. Like normal cows in nature don't have like these huge tumors and these like, yeah, the videos just made me realize that I was like, I don't want to eat that. That's atrocious. Um, and then I think there's a sense of the emotional impact that when you stop eating that, you changes your mindset a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting because everybody that has gone plant-based or vegan that I know of, it's one of those things when you get over the hump of missing the food that you once had because let's be honest, some of the processed stuff and whatnot, it just tastes phenomenal.
Yeah,
But
sure.
everybody knows the feeling of having like a huge burger and then like after that, like who knows where it comes from, and then afterwards you're literally like, it's like smoking a blunt to the face. Let's be honest, like you're just like taken completely out of commission, right? And so I think that like it's really interesting to think about getting over that hump and then putting it by the wayside because everybody I know that's gone plant based was never wants to go back and feels better than they ever have. So, it's just encouraging, I think, to hear from you on that and kind of how much has gone into this. One question I have, because I'm following this conversation and going to go get myself a bunch of water, how much Himalayan salt am I putting into that, depending on how much I'm actually going to consume?
I mean, so I'll have a liter of water that's
Mm-hmm.
RO or distilled, and then I'll just put like a little like pinch of it.
Mm.
But I use Soleil salt, so that's the very highly condensed water salt. The goal is essentially with Soleil salt is just to saturate the water 100% with minerals. And Himalayan salt is not just sodium chloride; it's like it's has every other element too, but at very trace amounts. So you're getting these small amounts. Even gold exists in the ocean, right?
Right,
A
right.
small fragment of the elemental level. But like you have like hundreds of different minerals, and like you think about it, the ocean has that's where lava is formed. That's where over God knows how long time, how many minerals have saturated the ocean. And if you take a cup from one location and one shore, it'll have the same mineral composition and ratios as somewhere else, like in another part of the ocean, like across the world. And so seeing that similarity to even our blood and the similarity of composition of minerals in our blood definitely, makes you think how connected we are to the planet.
Yeah, totally. That's all super helpful. I have some people in the chat that are all commenting that they want to start to drink 3 liters of water a day. I think we're all talking about going plant-based. Everybody right now is like in this self-assessment zone where it's like, how many material things do I actually need, and like what should I really be eating, and how should I incorporate like a life work balance, and what is that, because if I'm at home maybe I have more time for some of that balance. So this is all like super timely, and I think this is my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not telling anybody to do anything different. You're providing your own personal experience, what you've gone through, how it's impacted you, and maybe an alternative point of view to what people will see on a day-to-day level. Is that fair?
Yep, exactly. Yep, it's fair. Yeah.
Cool. Well, cool, man. This has been super great from my perspective. I think the chat will agree. Anything else you want to add, just in terms about like this lifestyle from a plant consumption, water intake, and kind of how you're, trying to, I think, connect mind, body, and spirituality in like a very strong ecosystem? Anything else that like we can take away from this at this point?
I feel like a good call to action would be try it yourself. Get those 3 cups of water, throw some rice or quinoa, whatever in it, and then do it for 30 days and just see the results. I think once you've seen it and experienced it yourself, you'll change your mindset. You'll want to start listening to better music and like taking care of yourself, because you realize your thoughts matter.
Yeah, man. I'm really interested. Actually, what would be a really great thing is to do like a music test and just do all different types of, and like show what the outcome of that would be. Like people's minds would probably be blown as to what like it looks like. I don't know how we set all that up. I'm not qualified for all that, but like that's something for us to think
We'd
about.
all have to listen to different music, and we have to pick 3 people at least.
Yeah.
That'd be great. In like different locations, around the world. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. Well, really cool, Jamison. Appreciate you coming on, and we look forward to hopefully another segment in the coming weeks and stuff, man. But great film and great perspective overall.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Corey. Take it easy.
Right. Talk soon, man.
Bye.
See ya.